Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. In today's coverage of the ongoing civil war taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia, we have some fairly significant reports coming in about the ongoing Tigrayan Defense Force operation that is being conducted in western Tigray. And that operation is also showing itself in terms of additional force deployments in the Amhara region as well. So again, we're really looking at two areas where we are seeing a uptick in offensive operations by the Tigrayan Defense Forces. First and foremost, the larger operation appears to be centered within the enviros of a DRK, and then obviously heading northwest along the Tikizi River and then west into the western Tigray region. Additionally, we are continuing to receive reports about additional operations in southeastern Tigray. And again, these operations are occurring to the west and east of Waja. And additionally, we have also received reports that would indicate the Tigrayan Defense Forces have actually recrossed the Amharan border and are now threatening Kobo. As you will recall, at one point in time, the Tigrayan Defense Forces had seized control of Kobo right there on my map. They proceeded down this highway, the A2 highway, seizing control of Weldia, and then moving hundreds of kilometers, or well over 100 kilometers south, seizing control of Desse, Kombolcha, and then at one point threatening Addis Ababa in terms of being at the gates of Debre Berhan. But again, as we know, those forces have since withdrawn from that area, and there had been rumors of some sort of an agreement that could have been reached. Obviously, it would appear that that agreement, again, this is just speculation, that agreement was not honored by the Abiy loyalist side. Once the Tigrayan Defense Forces withdrew from the Amhara region, from the significant chunks of territory it had taken. So again, we're now looking at renewed operations by the Tigrayan Defense Forces. So again, first and foremost, it would appear that, as we know, the Abiy loyalist formations had maneuvered up towards Alamata, had actually entered Alamata to some extent, and then we saw a fairly significant counteroffensive in which the Tigrayan Defense Forces then evicted those forces of the Abiy loyalists, of the Amhara regional militias from Alamata. The Tigrayan Defense Forces have then proceeded down the A2 highway, but more specifically along these highlands and these hills to the east and west of Alamata, to the east and west of Waja. At the same time, they have maneuvered down the A2 highway. We now confirm that Waja is under the control of the Tigrayan Defense Forces, is again under the control of the Tigrayan Defense Forces, and large units of the Tigrayan Defense Forces have in fact crossed the border, the Amharan border, to the west of Waja and to the east of Waja, and appear to be working their way down these highlands, this hill country, again to the west of Waja and east of Waja. And this could be a renewed opportunity to re-threaten Kobo. Now, again, could we see the Tigrayan Defense Forces retake control of Kobo? It's possible. But again, we believe at MFAN, Military and Foreign Affairs Network, we believe that the Tigrayan Defense Forces are continuing to conduct envelop and destroy operations, as opposed to targeting areas of territory they wish to attack and seize, even if that territory happens to be a strong point and fairly well defended. That is not what is happening. It would appear that the Tigrayan Defense Forces are going after individual units, companies, battalions, even brigade, divisional sets of formations in the northern Amhara region. In terms of focusing their efforts on attempting to destroy the military capacity, the military formations of the Abiy loyalists, of the Amhara regional militias. And we continue to see those forces being deployed again south of the Tigrayan Amharan border in this area. Again, we believe the Tigrayan Defense Forces have maneuvered many kilometers south and are now now could be in a position to threaten Kobo again, really at any time. Now, will they move on Kobo? Difficult to say at this point. Obviously, the drone situation is still something that that resonates within this conflict. Both the TB2 drones, the Wingloon drone, piloted by both Ethiopian intelligence agencies and Emirati contractors, and obviously the Turkish contractors that are also operating inside of the former state of Ethiopia. The other offensive that we are hearing about right now is taking place both within the vicinity of Western Tigray and now south of a DRK. We can confirm that Tigrayan Defense Forces have pushed further south along the B30 highway, and are now operating right now at the farthest extent around this area of Chubar. And again, this does not appear to be a operation where territory is being taken with intent. Again, these are envelop and destroy operations where larger formations of Amhara regional militias are being isolated, surrounded, and then systematically destroyed by very large formations of the Tigrayan Defense Forces. In fact, we have heard reports that the TDF, the Tigrayan Army, has redeployed quite significant assets from within the vicinity of Mekelle, and even units that were fighting in southeastern Tigray, and at one point units that were fighting within the vicinity of Weldia and Kobo. Some of these better units have since been deployed in western Tigray, and we are now seeing more and more forces of the Tigrayan Defense Forces systematically crossing the Tikizi River and conducting deep strike operations in western Tigray. Again, we suspect that this operation will continue to gain steam in the days and weeks ahead, and at the same time, we are continuing to monitor forces of the Tigrayan Defense Forces that are also operating on the Sudanese side of the western Tigray border with Sudan. So again, that could be something that we start to see in terms of a renewed operation by the Tigrayan Defense Forces coming across the Sudanese border and then joining their fellow compatriots that are also pushing towards the west from the Tikizi River. So you have quite literally a two-pronged operation. TDF units, large TDF units now apparently. I talked about company-sized formations. We're crossing the Tikizi River, and we're continuing deeper and deeper into western Tigray, but now we're hearing that number is now boosted into the thousands. Again, large formations of the Tigrayan Defense Forces are massing just east of the Tikizi River, and in some cases are now crossing the Tikizi River in what could be a very, very large-scale operation. Quite possibly the largest operation that the Tigrayan Defense Forces have conducted in the western Tigray area of operations since the start of the conflict. Again, I talked about in previous videos that the Tigrayan Defense Forces had not committed a large amount of combat power in its operations, in its previous operations in western Tigray. We are now seeing fairly significant elements of some serious combat power in terms of manpower, and more elite units, more battle-hardened units that have participated in other areas of operations being deployed and are now operating in Western Tigray or preparing for further operations to cross the Tikizi River into Western Tigray. Additionally, a DRK, as we had spoken earlier, was retaken, and the Tigrayan Defense Forces continue to move down the B30 highway, both west and east of the B30 highway. And again, these are these envelop and destroy operations where they're looking to isolate these units of the Amhara regional militias and then destroy them. We have not seen the presence of drones as much in Western Tigray. Obviously, we have seen the Ethiopian National Air Force, the Abiy Loyalist Air Force, being deployed in Western Tigray at times, but for the most part, most of the combat power of the Abiy Loyalists in terms of air power were obviously committed to the Tigrayan Defense Forces offensive within the Desse Kombolcha area of operations, and continue to be deployed as the B loyalists pushed north, attempting to evict the Tigrayan Defense Forces from the Amhara region. But again, as we had talked about before, the Tigrayan Defense Forces withdrew from this area where my cursor is circling. And it would appear the new interest of the Tigrayan Defense Forces is a concerted push into Western Tigray. And at some point, again, we could see these formations that are based on the other side of the Sudanese border. Again, this is a very sparse border. If we zoom in and we take a close look at what's there, there is not a lot there in terms of roadways, in terms of cities, towns, or really anything. It's very, very difficult to identify the actual Western Tigray border with Sudan. But again, we understand that Tigrayan Defense Forces have elements in the eastern Sudan near the border of Western Tigray. And those forces are indeed preparing to conduct operations and cross the Sudanese border, the Western Tigray border, and engage forces of the Abiy loyalists. Also, heavy quantities of the Eritrean army are also operating in Western Tigray. So this is going to cause renewed direct conflict with the the Tigrayan Defense Forces and the Eritrean Army, which is also operating in Western Tigray. Specifically, there are quite a few Eritrean forces in Himora. They have obviously evicted and persecuted many peoples from the Tigray region who were living in Himora, and many of those folks were removed from Himora and taken to Eritrea proper itself, and we don't know the fate of many of those people from the Tigray region that were taken by the despotic regime of Isaias Afwerki within the vicinity of Himora. Now, if and when the Tigrayan Defense Forces seize control of Himora, we may find out more about the fate of many thousands of Tigrayans who were living in the Western Tigray region. And again, I think we'll find that some fairly significant atrocities were committed by the Eritrean army, and that's kind of par for the course for the Eritrean army in terms of its past performances, so to speak. But again, that's what we are seeing right now. We're watching very, very closely what is happening in Western Tigray. We have heard that a fairly large operation with the focus on possibly seizing Ade Ramitz is underway. Now, whether Adiramaits will be seized by the Tigrayan Defense Forces, that's another story entirely, but we're watching it very, very closely. Again, this is one of the more concerted and large-scale operations by the Tigrayan Defense Forces within the vicinity of both Western Tigray and the Adi Arke area of operation. So really this is now all one continuous front running from Adi Arke and just southwest of Adi Arke near Chubir, and then obviously along the Tikizi River and west of the Tigrizi River. I'm now going to simply call this the Western Tigray frontal zone of operations right now. And again, we are watching it very, very closely. We'll have more information very, very soon. Our folks on the ground are communicating with us, and hopefully we will have additional information very, very soon about this uptick in operations. So again, we will have more content for your consumption again very, very soon. Again, I am back at my home base. I anticipate to make another video later today, and again, more information coming about the ongoing civil war taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia. More to come, guys.